So now let's come to a substantive issue, and it's about the finance minister saying we're going to have coupon rates paid by March. Subsequently, we're telling Germany that they should approach China for us. The German ambassador is telling us that we have to cut our quota according to our size. And then the National Insurance Authority is also indicating, and we'll have that on the screen very soon, that apparently they can't distribute cards, or they can't get access to cards to those who have Ghana card. And we know that there's a CI before Parliament, etc. And we're having this conversation in the context of what we have, what we don't have. $117 million US owed to vendors, the NIA, and then coupon rates, we're defaulting on our debt, etc. Now, let's hear the German ambassador raise key issues. But first, look at this headline from the NIA. They're owing big time, 117 million. It will be on your screens very soon. Then we'll follow up with an insight from the German ambassador, who is telling us that we can't go about asking for money whilst at the same time we don't want to reduce the size of government, the type of expenditure we're undertaking. And apparently, the NIA is indicating they will need some 65 million. 65 million. We're talking US dollars already. All these indications. But the German ambassador is next.
As I said, it will be in the framework of existing cooperation, and we might be willing to consider some additional funds to be added. I mentioned the important part of vocational training, because competitiveness is about skilled labor and quality of the workforce, especially if you look at competitiveness in the region. That's an important part of support. And secondly, it's also about financial access to financing. The World Bank, jointly with the German Development Bank KfW and the African Development Bank, supported Ghana in the setup of the Development Bank of Ghana. For us, this is the key tool for supporting the business sector, and we have supported the build-up of this bank, and we hope that this bank will prove to be very, very helpful for the sector, and we might be willing to look into adding up this financing window for this bank. Well, of course, it depends very much on what kind of expenditures you're looking at, and there are certain. I'm convinced this is true for. If I look at the budget of the German Foreign Ministry, of the German government, I'm convinced there are important parts that can be cut without hurting the economic development, and I'm convinced, without going into details, this also is true for Ghana. There are certainly expenditures that can be lowered substantially. And
Pius, our developer partners are telling us that we should cut expenditure because these are dead default things.
Well,
that we all represent says no.
I would have preferred that you started with my brothers, but that's fine. Sandwiched between these two fine gentlemen, I should have been given an opportunity to.
How can the proponent, the government, ask opposition to speak before it brings out his
But you see, no, you're not asking me to.
No, please, don't heckle him.
I think that, first of all, we must understand that there are rules that govern international diplomacy. And as much as ambassadors and representatives of sovereigns are allowed a certain level of laxity, there are rules within the Vienna Convention that must guide our narrative. And I have listened to the ambassador. He said a lot of good things, and he had a lot of vote of confidence for what is happening within our jurisdiction. It is reported, I was hoping to hear it, but I'm sure time did not allow us. It is reported that he said something about the size of our government.
He said it.
I think that if he indeed say that, if he said that, I heard him say that we need to cut expenditure, public expenditure. So if it is about cutting government expenditure, we are aligned with that one. Mr. President himself has said that. Members of government have said that. I myself have said that. That we need to find a balance between public expenditure and public revenue, government revenue for that matter. So, yes, it is easy to ask that we should cut expenditure, but expenditure in what? We should cut our expenditure on the road sector because that's public expenditure. Our expenditure on education, we were just talking about education. And even with the increased investments, we are still being told, and rightly so, that we can only do more. So we should cut expenditure in education, or we should cut our expenditure in the health areas. So our development partners must appreciate the severity of our problem and the need for us to jumpstart if we have to compete on equal terms. It is easy for them to say, cut expenditure here, cut expenditure there. Because I hold the view that these our development partners, our bilateral partners and so on, they are not really and truly out there in our best interest. If they had their way, Africa would be a production force for them to be feeding their economies, and that was the intendment that drove them to even come in the first place onto our shores and to colonize us and to take our natural resources.
Are we not blaming our woes on?
I'm not blaming our woes. I'm just doing a truthful historical analysis of the facts, and I'm saying that when they make their subscriptions, we must look at it in our own context and take our own decisions. Because if you say cut public expenditure on roads, public expenditure on education, public expenditure on health, or what? We must be clear what it is. People talk about borrowing. I, as a person, and even to the party that I belong, and I'm sure to many of us here, we should not have a problem with borrowing. Bernard, we are a developing African country.
Keep calling me, I'm Roland.
Roland, we should not have a problem with borrowing. We should not have a problem with borrowing. We are a developing African country. We need to borrow to jumpstart our development.
He's
For me,
telling us
it is
that
the
we
question
should cut
of
expenditure.
But I'm saying that's what I'm saying, that we must look at some of the prescriptions carefully and contextualize it within our own situation. Yes, cut public expenditure, but in which area? And why must we? Because I'm saying that if it is a question of borrowing, I don't have a problem with borrowing. It is what you use the borrowing for. So if we borrow money and we see the roads that are being built, I just used the Nungwa road. I saw what is being done on that road. We are seeing what is being done elsewhere. If we borrow to build hospitals, if we borrow to build schools, for instance, our colleagues in the NDC, they took some money to build 29 E-blocks. You are not going to say that we should cut those critical expenditures. So we must be guided. We are confronted now. Bernard, the problem now is that COVID has come, and government financing.
I'll correct you again if you call me Bernard.
No, it's Roland. I know that. Roland.
My classmate, yeah.
Roland, and my very, very good friend too. Roland, the problem right now is that the world is in crisis. How countries are impacted is quite different. Germany is impacted differently because of their capacities. UK is impacted differently. Ghana is impacted differently. But all countries of the world have been impacted.
They're all with the IMF.
And so many
looking
countries,
out for bailout.
Many countries are with the IMF, we're looking out for bailout. So that has given every commentator an opportunity to take a.
You call the German ambassador just every commentator. What he's saying,
it goes beyond him. Eduji has been speaking. Bernard has been speaking. Why must we not consider what they say, but only what the German ambassador is saying? That's what I'm saying.
Because
that
you go
commentators. I'm going beyond him, and I'm saying that commentators. And I would drill down to this size of government thing, and I'll come to the substantive in due course. In 2012. When our colleagues in the NDC, Mr. Mahama was president, Ghana's population was about 25 million. 25 million. We had 10 regions at the time. How many ministers did we have? About 85 ministers. Today we are in 2023, population of 32 million, not 25 million. 32 million almost. Now we have 16 regions. How many ministers do we have? About 86. People say that, some ministries must be fused together. That's okay. But the NDC, they decoupled the power ministry from the energy ministry. You think they didn't know what they were doing? You see, we are looking at the outputs of the interventions and the ideas that we have brought on board. When I was here last week, I said to you that they said we should put back sanitation and water with local government. They did that. What did we get? What was the result? Cholera in Accra in the year 2015. Over 200 people died. We are looking at a fast-track way to resolve our challenges. We decoupled the railways ministry from the broader transport ministry.
Aviation.
So go and see what is happening between Tema and Mpakadan, the railroad that had been on the drawing board for years. You go into the western region area and see for yourself the number of railroads, the tracks that have been repaired and are working now. So when we take these decisions, we take them bearing in mind what the objectives of the current dispensation is and how fast
the German ambassador says that, of course, public expenditure can be cut. And you are here justifying it. You are justifying it.
I'm saying that
surprises many.
No, I'm saying that it is easy and okay for a German ambassador who, by the way, they should watch the refusals, the visa refusals that they give, the monies that they make from us, when for flimsy reasons they deny Ghanaians applications for visas as compared to how they get visas to come here.
Because Ghanaians are running due to economic reasons.
But no, migration is a natural concept, is as old as Adams. They also came here sometime. And when we have to go there now, it is not a crime. Migration, movement of people is allowed. But they have monetized it, and it has become a revenue stream for them. He must also avert his mind. He must avert his mind to that as well. It's a huge revenue stream for them. So my conclusion is that, look, as a developing African country, we must know our priorities. We are putting our monies where our mouth is. We want to jumpstart our economies, and we want to leapfrog into where we want to be. It will mean that increased government spending. So when they are talking to us about cutting government expenditure, they must bear in mind our context, and they should be defined, detailed. They should give us exactly which areas they are looking at. When it is the size of government, I just did a quick comparative analysis between the NPP and the NDC for you. 2012, when we had 25 million people and 85 ministers, and 10 regions, as against 2023, when we now have 16 regions, when our population has moved from the 25 million to almost 32 million, we are talking about how many ministers? 80-something, 86 ministers. So the size of government can be an area that we can look at. But I have not seen any mathematics that is showing me that so much money, the waste pipes are in another area we can look at. And if we want to have an honest and nationalistic discussion about where the waste pipes are, we can identify them. Okay. But to just be simplistic and go at the size of government, look, the size of the German government. Do you know the number of ambassadors and high commissioners Germany has deployed?
Do you know the size?
That is the size of government as well.
Germany?
That is the size of their government as well.
Eduji, you look at the allusions that Pius makes. These are multilateral partners. We go to them. Their citizens pay taxes. They borrow money to us hugely. And now we are in debt default, even beyond not only Germany or Europe, but even into Asia. And these are the justifications.
You see, my brother, as usual, doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Oh, what do you mean by that? You can't say that.
No, he's the person who appointed him, Mr. Akufo-Addo. Is begging the Germans to go and beg China for him. And you are here, in the scheme of things, saying these things. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Mr. Akufo-Addo does not even have the courage to meet the Chinese that we owe $1.7 billion to. So he has to fall on the Germans to go and beg China to restructure our external debts. Do you know that if we don't have the Chinese agreeing to restructure our debts, the IMF meeting in March to consider our bailout application will fail?
How did you come by that conclusion?
That is it. Because you are both restructuring the external and domestic. So far, it is only the domestic. Even with the domestic, our friends in government had to come with the voodoo mathematics to reach the 85% participation ratio. We are begging the Chinese. In fact, the Minister of Finance is supposed to go to China, except that the Chinese have given an indication that the Communist Party are having their Congress. And so until the end of March, before they can meet your finance minister. And so you are begging the Germans that they should do that. But you see, look at how reckless Akufo-Addo had handled our diplomatic matters. The closest ally to China today are the Russians. The last time Mr. Akufo-Addo had the opportunity to go to the US, he went snitching on what? The Russians and Burkina Faso. That Russia had brought or deployed armed men in Burkina, the Wagner forces. This is the kind of president we have. This matters, you don't say it before camera. The diplomatic blunder in reporting Russia to the US. If no, it would have been easier for us getting the Russians to talk to the Chinese. Now you are falling on Germany. And if the German ambassador, the one who is representing the German government in Ghana, is telling you that from all indication, you need to cut down on your expenditure. What you do is that you take off the arrogance and listen.
Well, Payo says everything is all right.
I mean, how can everything be all right? So far, you have defaulted on major international financial commitments. This is not the posturing that is required. You take it in good faith. As we speak, the Chief of Staff had presented the 2022, even expenditure within the presidency to Parliament. Look at how much Akufo-Addo is spending. For our 65th Independence Day celebration in Cape Coast, that day alone, they spent 10.4 million Ghana cedis. Telecommunication and internet services, 20 million Ghana cedis. Cabinet retreat, 4.8 million. That's January to September. Payment for lorry ties and lubricant, 20.5 million Ghana cedis. Visit to the regions by Akufo-Addo, January-September 2022. He spent 16.9 million Ghana cedis.
What's your point?
The point is that you cannot be spending this kind of money and go with a cup in hand, begging. It doesn't make sense. So what the German ambassador is saying is that you have been very reckless. You are spending money that you don't have. You have gotten the governor of Bank of Ghana to forget that he's heading an independent constitutional body, to the point that within 2022 alone, the governor of Bank of Ghana gave you 45 billion Ghana cedis, $3.5 billion in the fiscal year 2021. He gave you 35 billion Ghana cedis in the fiscal year. Meanwhile, Sections 30 of the Bank of Ghana Act, Act 612, as amended by Act 918, says that within a fiscal year, the Bank of Ghana cannot give to government of Ghana beyond 5%. Meanwhile, we have been doing more than 30% consistently for 3 years. You think our development partners are not reading the books? You think they are propagandists who early morning will just be saying anything that they want? Look, you guys have destroyed people's livelihoods. You guys have destroyed people's savings. What they want to hear from you, pious, and people who communicate for Akufo-Addo, is to demonstrate humility. Why? When we started having these financial challenges, did you see your president approach any chief in Ghana to go and beg the Chinese? It's the Germans that he ran to. In fact, what you don't know is that your president had visited Germany than all European countries because of his close relationship with them. So you can't come and sit here and say what you like. There are critical issues that people have read the books. You've engaged in a lot of creative accounting. You were hiding the numbers from Ghanaians. Today, the bubble is gone.
Well, what Pius is saying is at least the German ambassador needs to also show some diplomatic courtesy.
What diplomatic courtesy? Look, do you
give
know
indication
that,
which areas need to be cut, etc.
Already,
despite our overtures to the German government.
Already your finance minister had given an indication that if we do not get an IMF bailout by March, the economy will crash. These are his words.
Wrap up for me.
What it means is that we are in a state of emergency. This is not the time for diplomatic niceties.
Oh, from ambassadors?
This is not the time.
Wow.
This is the time to confront the realities. And you know what? The IMF, do you know that even COVID-19 audit, when NDC MPs, H.E. John Dramani Mahama, we kept saying that we beg you in God's name. 33 billion Ghana cedis have been made available to you during COVID. Account for it. We are calling for an audit. Do you know that July the 1st, when Mr. Akufo-Addo said he was going to the IMF now demanded that COVID-19 audit should be a prerequisite. And that is what forced them to now come out with the audit report. Even when the audit report was published, your AG was
indeed
attacking.
They stated that publicly.
Yeah, so what is the point?
Now, Bernard, if you look at the submissions of the two and what the German embassy is...
You've wasted it.
No,
you have taken over.
So Bernard,
you are attacking the German ambassador instead of dealing with it.
What are the implications of all these?
I did not attack anybody.
The multilateral donors are telling us that, look, don't touch the social side, but there are a lot of things by way of policy interventions that you need to cut public spending. Is it that the government is not listening or not?
Well, Roland, I was surprised at the posture of Pius this morning when he took us to the days of yesteryears, telling us that the Germans came here, colonized us, and they have no right whatsoever to be talking about whether our economy is doing well or not, and that to the extent that they profited by way of colonization, they are estopped from talking about our economy. It is obvious that he is not following his president.
Unbelievable.
President John Ajekum Kufuor, when our economy was in difficulty and we ran for HIPIC, relied on Germans to give us in excess of 200 million.
Unbelievable.
200. They did debt cancellation. And I recall that debt cancellation that Osafo Mafu signed the agreement. And when you asked him what were the terms surrounding the debt cancellation, he responded that the text was in German, Deutsch, and he did not read it. But what was important is that it was a debt cancellation and Ghana was not to pay for it. So the Germans have always been available anytime Ghana ran itself aground. And in this occasion when Minister Ledner came to Ghana, President Akufo-Addo took opportunity to tell the finance minister of Germany that go and plead with China so that they can forgive our debts or find a way to reschedule our debts. I have been on record saying that President Akufo-Addo has debased the presidency. The German finance minister is not the equal of President Akufo-Addo. If President Akufo-Addo wanted somebody of substance, he should just pick a phone or go on one of his trips to Germany and talk to the Chancellor of Germany. Or President Akufo-Addo could fly to China and request a meeting with Xi Jinping to sit down and ask the Germans, and not anybody, but the German finance minister to go and lead that pace, was to say that our president has lost the script and does not understand diplomacy. If you're talking about who has lost the script in this instance, it's President Akufo-Addo who has decided that the ladder of diplomacy should be lowered. Instead of you dealing with
and he's a former foreign affairs minister.
You should be dealing with president to president, not president to foreign affairs minister. For finance minister, then finance minister to chancellor, then chancellor. I mean, it doesn't gel. So in terms of diplomatic handling of this, it's President Akufo-Addo who has goofed. He has tombed in this matter. And instead of us to be so sad about the attitude of our president, because it just appears that our president simply doesn't know where to rely on, because Ken Ofori-Atta has lied to him on this ground. Then he follows Ken Ofori-Atta, then he realized that they are going into the ditch. They ran out, they are running into this path. Ken Ofori-Atta said, let's use this.
What kind of conjecturing is that?
What is it? Did you listen to Eugene? Eugene said that Ken Ofori-Atta came. And they went to Parliament and fought. And they fought because Ken Ofori-Atta brought 2 revenue streams. That they, as MP, were opposed. But Ken said that, look, we cannot go to IMF. We will not go to IMF if you grant us e-levy, if you grant us property rates. They fought to ensure that they granted Ken Ofori-Atta. They did everything possible for Ken Ofori-Atta. This is not me talking, this is MPP MPs. So Akufo-Addo believed in Ken Ofori-Atta, who led him on a certain path. When they got there, they realized that the place was dangerous. They come out. They ran to this side. So in the midst of running to many points where they think that that is where economic salvation will come from, President Akufo-Addo is confused. So much that today he's asking foreign finance ministers of different countries to talk. If you ask the finance minister of Germany to speak, how do you come and sit on the same program and say that the ambassador of Germany cannot speak?
Well, he was just putting things into perspective.
Which perspective is this?
If you say
Which perspective?
that we should cut expenditure, what sort of expenditure
and
should
so
we
the
cut?
man has told you, the man has told you that, look, you cannot go on a very huge, large size of government and expect us that we keep a slim government and we come and support you to run your large government. Does that make sense? Yes. Because you, with little population of just 30 million, they have in excess of 84 million. Check the size of their cabinet. Okay. And check your size.
Now it's now cabinet, it's not government.
Check the size of their government, if you want me to put it. And compare with the size of your government.
It's larger.
You understand? You get there and you realize that no.
10 times larger.
And your revenue is equal to their revenue. Why beg them? If you want to be self-dependent, don't go run and tell people that they should give you any money. You don't go begging them and tell them that they should restrict themselves to Vienna conventions. Where are the Vienna conventions when you go begging them? And so it is important that, look, even as I decry the attitude of some of these ambassadors, and I recall not long ago when...
you do.
Can I make my point? When I recall not long ago when the president went to UN to go and speak about the Israeli occupation of Palestine, and then the Israeli ambassador issued a statement and virtually told the president not to go and misspeak again. And when I came out saying that the ambassador should be sacked, your own people said that, why should the ambassador be sacked? The president kept quiet. And so, if the president can keep quiet over Israeli ambassador, today, when the German ambassador is speaking, Payos is saying that no, the German ambassador should stop speaking. You can't eat your cake and have it. Importantly, look, we have run ourselves into this crisis. This crisis, we could have avoided. We still have the same part of the yam that is rotten. And you think that the yam will be good. When a part of the yam starts to rot and you don't find a way to cut it off, you will end up with no yam. With Ken Ofori-Atta still as Minister of Finance, who virtually has no clue as to how to manage an economy, you are not going anywhere. If the Chinese are saying that you cannot come to them for any negotiation until after the end of March, when they would have been done with their Communist Party's activities, you need to secure an IMF bailout by the 15th of March, you have failed. And therefore, where you are relying for a reprieve, that is not going to come. And so I think that you cannot, you forced domestic creditors, right? You can't force the external creditors. And you got up and imposed on the domestic creditors. Today, if you think you are a man, go and impose on the external creditors and let's see. Instead of you to show humility and go down on your knees, you are here speaking things that you are not supposed to speak.
Roland, you see,
In any case, the Germans gave us 80 million during COVID.
Can you take charge?
They have a responsibility to know what you spend the money on.
Can I speak?
Yes.
I am surprised at the excitement. But I can understand when people are only keen on results of elections.
Who are the people?
I know, I'll point them out to you now. And they will do anything and say anything only to win power. They forget that there are structural limitations that must be confronted. So they can do the cheap politics. I will come, Roland. They can do the cheap. They can do the cheap politics of being sentimental and emotive and all that. But the chicken will come home to roost.
Which is what?
Which is that when Eduji Tameklu is shouting on top of his voice, excited that lack of proper diplomacy, the Wagner forces, it is responsible for the president of Ghana to express concerns about what he believes are security threats on the periphery.
But you do it diplomatically.
And so he didn't do it at a press conference. He didn't do it at a press conference.
With
you
the
understand?
Camera in front of camera.
Please.
Have you ever seen that before? A snake.
Please. Let's get serious.
When your president
Let's get serious. Let's get serious. We have our problems. Ghana must be protected. Yeah. And when there is a threat, you have to deal with it. And you form partnerships to fight it.
He was criticized by the NDC at the time when key international relations people.
Can you put a list on my brother?
Key international relations experts, professors, etc. That was a big diplomatic gap.
It was not, and I've listened to senior diplomats. I didn't ask you names because we can get to all of that. Who have commended the president. The only challenge was that for whatever reason, a confidential conversation that was had between the president and officers of the Department of State, and that was the proper platform. It was not at the press conference. It was not at the UN. It was at a confidential meeting between a responsible president of I mean, is the president going to ask the State Department people to shut the cameras off? No. Please, you have to. Sometimes I am compelled to probably use strong language. We have to be reasonable on some of these matters. We have to be reasonable on some of these matters. Please.
It's not us. No. You see, he decided to use the word reasonable for a reason.
I'm saying that we have to be reasonable on some of these matters. You enter into a private confidential meeting, not a press conference or the UN.
Now we can't go to Russia.
We can't go to Russia. We can't go to Russia.
You think Russia is happy with us?
We can't go to Russia. I don't want to say, we who understand international diplomacy know that when you have legitimate concerns and you express them, it does not stop you from pursuing your genuine interests. Why? Is Ghana and Russia at loggerheads? We have an ambassador here who continues to have a good relationship with us. We are speaking to Russia and we are speaking to Germany. But I'm saying that the fact that we have problems today and we are speaking to our bilateral partners doesn't mean that they should dictate to us what we must do, even if it is not in our interest.
Do you remember the Russian ambassador issuing a statement publicly that government's communication and refrain that Russia invasion of Ukraine is not the cause of our economic war?
Well, but that's what he will say. What do you expect? This war has gone on for a year. Where is the result? Check
and all nations of the world
are feeling it, and every president is making reference to that. You hear proceedings at the EU Parliament. You hear proceedings even at the United Nations. All presidents are making reference to Russia, Ukraine. So it is not a matter that is only peculiar to Ghana. The distortions in the transport value chain that the war has occasioned is a matter of public knowledge.
When we come back, when we come back, we're going to have Professor John Gachi come in, making a word, and then also we have some conclusive statement. We're going for a break. We'll be right back. Professor John Gachi is a dean, the University of Cape Coast Business School. Good morning to you, Professor John Gachi.
Good morning.
Now, there are key considerations, and this one is just a short into submission you're making. We're apparently defaulting hugely internationally on our external debts. Also, information is we're going through Germany to China, etc. But the finance minister is saying coupon rates could be paid by March, etc. From where you sit, as somebody who analyzes the space as far as the economy, finance, business, the sector, what are the implications? What are the nuances?
Well, I think it is not today that the international creditors are aware that Ghana has defaulted or is about to default. That signal was sent some time back, so I believe they are aware. Creditor committee has been set up. That is a clear indication that default has arrived. This is something that they are dealing with. And the implication is that we are not paying. We are not in position to pay. Our books are very bad, so we cannot pay. So that has been communicated already. So that is why the creditor committee is set up, to see how arrangements will be made for payment at a future date.
Now, if we look at how China has behaved with its countries that it has relationship with in terms of giving facilities to takeovers, etc., how difficult is it for us to convince China, especially in relation to us having a default with them, based on the facilities we have?
Well, I think there are many developments that one can think may be the reason. Number one, we have boldly indicated that we have enough gold to exchange for oil. So China's policy in Africa is to use debt to penetrate. So if you are claiming to the international community that you have gold enough to exchange for oil, then China is in need of gold. Will you be ready to exchange gold for oil, or gold for China's debt? So all these implications have been seen over the past few months that governments are talking about some of this. So China may not believe that we are not in position to pay. That is one. Then two, China's debt is not a friendly debt. So they don't want to lose their money. That is what government itself was talking about, cancellation of debt, etc. But as of yesterday, they changed the tune, and they are now saying that they are not seeking debt cancellation from China, which means that China may not be ready for that, and we must be ready to put ourselves together to see how we can meet the debt obligation of China.
Are you saying that over the period when we knew that debt default, especially with a big international partner like China, was in the offing, we behaved on the other side as if we're big Saudi sheikhs, and so that has given China the wrong signal, and in our quest to seek for some kind of...
Well, I think so. Because even with Germany, Germany is indicating that, look, we have not seen a cut in your expenditure to reflect on the situation you find yourself. It's as if life is usual. So we can't see that and go talking to partners, and including China, to forgive your debt or to cancel your debt. So even Germany has signaled what we are doing, which does not reflect on what we think is our problem.
It doesn't look good, does it?
That is what the picture seems to be. And it may be a long haul.
How can that have an influence on us getting a bailout by March? We're told that by March, dear, by all means.
Well, I think there are two issues which have not been clarified by both the IMF and the government of Ghana.
Which are?
It is not it is not clear whether the IMF was looking for domestic debt exchange to be concluded to have the program, or they want both domestic and external debt to be concluded to have the program. If the case is that they were only looking for the domestic debt exchange to be concluded, then perhaps we may get a program after March. But if the issue is about both domestic and external debt or creditors to agree, then we have a problem on hand.
Wow, wow. Professor John Gachi, Dean, University of Cape Coast Business School, giving us that insight. But that transitions are Eduji. As you make such commentary, we are in a certain position of having the National Identification Authority saying that, well, they are owed, or they owe their creditors $170 million. They need $65 million right now for release of cards. On the other hand, there's a CI being sent to Parliament by the Electoral Commission that is aspiring to make the Ghana card the sole document for registration onwardly into the National Voters Register.
You see, from the time the Akufo-Addo administration conspired and got Charlotte Osei removed and brought this puppet of Electoral Commission chairperson.
Roland, are you going to allow such language?
It is everything
Are you going to allow such language?
It is everything Akufo-Addo wants that Jane Mensah is willing to do for him. So in 2020, Akufo-Addo wanted a tailor-made voters register. Jane Mensah provided him. Today, as we speak, even when the man had destroyed this country, he had destroyed the Ghanaian confidence in our democratic institution. Even now.
What do you mean by that?
Look, today, do a simple barometer report and ask Ghanaians, 10 Ghanaians, their belief in our current democracy by reason of the reckless governance Akufo-Addo had given us. Today, people's confidence in our democracy is gone. But you see, the Electoral Commission in 2 years or 3 years ago, in 2020, introduced Constitutional Instrument 126. And in Constitutional Instrument 126, the Electoral Commission provided the opportunity of Ghana card, passport, the vouching system. And for the vouching system, even allowed for commissioners of oath to come and do more like an affidavit if you are coming in to vouch for someone. It's on that basis that a new voters register was compiled. As we speak, it's Jane Mensah, Bosman Asari saying the register that was compiled in 2020 using all these identity documents problematic. No. In fact, we are going to have district assembly election this year. They intend using the same voters register.
What's your point?
The point I'm making is that the Electoral Commission had not provided any justification for making the Ghana card the sole identity document.
Why not? They are saying that, look, we've spent a number of times and money compiling the data register, a data that we can also pull a number of voters from. And so using that main document,
look, as we speak,
for onward registration.
No, listen.
For onward registration.
No, listen.
It is not old registration.
Listen to the.
So what's the problem?
No, listen to the illogic of Jane Mensah. You are saying that the Constitution in Article 42 does not provide any limit except 3: age, citizenship, and soundness of mind. Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution to be registered as a voter. Soundness of mind, you cannot make a determination. But your date of birth is in the passport, correct? Your citizenship is in the passport, correct? So in 2020, you went to Parliament and justified a CI 126. And Parliament, by reason of Article 11(7), allowed the 21 days period. On that basis, you created a register. Even more importantly, you are saying that the sole document should be what? Ghana card. Now, the person who makes Ghana card is who? The NIA.
But this is for onward registration.
No, hold on. The law allowing NIA allows it to use a vouching system. So your input is garbage in, garbage out. In one way, you are taking the vouching system from your CI. The person whose document you are depending on allows for a vouching or guarantor system. Is it not madness? And you see, there's even more dangerous regulation in the CI that people have not adverted their minds to. That is allowing registration to be done in the district office only. Let me take my brother Pius, the constituency where he wants to go.
Which one?
Esojaman.
Esojaman.
No K2 North. If you pick Esojaman, look at Frank Edua to Atimpoku. Look at Nundu to Ajina, the overseas, to Atimpoku. Now, if you are saying that you want to do the registration in the district office, my people, my Ewe brothers and sisters who are overseas doing fishing, to ask them to leave their fishing business and take another car and come to Atimpoku or where the district office is before they can do registration, you are effectively telling them that we don't need you on the register. So Akufo-Addo's Gen Mensa had brought two things.
But this is countrywide.
It's not. No. I'm giving you a classic
thing.
Look, let me say Domeko Abenya. The district office is at Abokobi. Someone is at Taifa. You are asking the person in Taifa to move from Taifa to Abokobi to go and get.
Is it not possible if you want to vote?
No. In fact, the Electoral Commission should make registration easy. You should not put impediments in their way. You don't do that. And why is Jane Mensah doing all this? Why is she doing this? What wrong have we done?
Why? Are you drawing a conspiracy theory?
Yes.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Do you know why? Because you see, the number of 18 years that are going onto the register is key for electoral purposes. If you are going to have a situation where over 2 million new people are going to come onto the register.
I think by the growth of what we're told,
in fact, it's supposed to be only, yes.
Yeah.
If you have 2 million new people coming onto the register, simple mathematics.
Of 2 million.
Yes, if someone is turning 18 years now, it means that when John Mahama was president, the person will be roughly 8 years old. He never saw NDC admin. His reality is Akufo-Addo. The pain the parents are going through. You understand? So Akufo-Addo and Jane Mensah have decided to impede first-time voters from getting access onto the register. No, that is the reality.
That's a supposition.
Look, you see, it is not. If not, how come that you use the same CI 126 to compile the 2020 register, which is fit for purpose? Now you are doing this. This is the most terrible thing I've seen.
You think that is what is being eviscerated?
And you know that as we speak, there are cars by NIA in bonded warehouses. Yeah. They are now begging Ken Oforiatta for money.
They don't have money.
In order to clear those items.
You've been monitoring
all this. Do this?
The draft CI for which the minority, some critics are saying that, look, we need additional means by which people can have their names into the register going forward, just because of the growth and the numbers that are expected. What do you make of it? Just shortly.
What do I make of it? Let me conclude on where I was to conclude. That I think that it was miscommunication on the part of President Akufo-Addo to go and speak to a foreign affairs minister, Tony Blinken, and tell him that Russia has sent its Wagner forces and that Burkina Faso was using gold to pay them. When President Akufo-Addo signed the U.S.-Ghana Military Cooperation Agreement, Burkina Faso did not go to China to go and complain to the Chinese that President Akufo-Addo has signed a military cooperation with the United States and that they are threatened by that. And so for the fact that we have sovereignty, a bit created by the colonizers.
Wagner forces are not official.
Can I make my point? So that today, President Akufo-Addo is complaining. When I drove through Tamale Airport, I saw U.S. Marine. When I go to Ghana, Burma camp, I see the United States forces moving everywhere within our barracks.
We have the cooperation.
And I feel...
But that's not similar to Wagner.
Will this young man keep quiet for me to talk?
Please go ahead.
And so I feel that whilst President Akufo-Addo is overstepping his diplomatic talks, he should be guided by the implications of some of these things that he's saying.
Exactly.
Because if Burkina Faso want to say That why you are reporting that, talking to Blinken and telling us the United States of America, what were you insinuating? That they should come and invade Burkina Faso? I mean, how? Is that the implication? Is that what President Akufo-Addo wanted? That look, come and check Burkina Faso and its relationship with Russia? CI. That was terrible.
CI.
And we need to...
Ghana can't vote it, please.
That was the only...
CI.